Va'al yala al datcha shehamelech hamashiach tzarech lasais oisais u'moisim. The Rambam makes one thing very clear, is don't think that Mashiach has to do miracles. We're going to see as he gets later, he's going to be comparing this to those that believe that he has to do miracles. Mashiach does not, he can, yes, but he's not required to. And one of the proofs that we see that he will, and that the era of Mashiach will be filled with miracles, is that the pasuk in Micha says, "Ki meit seischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenen niflois." Like the days that you left Egypt, I will show you great miracles. Meaning, like those days that you saw great miracles when you left Egypt, like those days, erenu, I will show you once again when Mashiach comes. Now, one of the distinctions they make is that Mashiach himself doesn't have to do miracles, but the era of Mashiach will be replete with miracles, be filled with Nisan, Mamish.
Do you differentiate between miracles and science? Like, is AI to somebody living 400 years ago is a miracle, right? Oh.
So you might call that a nes nister, meaning none of the laws of nature being broken. It's just using nature in a wondrous way.
Was it Yam earthquake the laws of nature?
So according to Rashba, it was. According to others, it would be a nes nister.
Rambam says no.
Others say, well, the Rashba says it was within the laws of nature. Is that it was the winds all coordinated at the same time, moving up. The Rambam's approach to miracles is that it was set into nature at the beginning of time. I mean, the same way that it's a miracle that you have any element in the world that does what it does, because God made it so. God said that usually gravity is going to make sure the water goes down, but I will implant into the nature of water that when the Jews come to the Yam Suf, that the water will go like this.
Is it interesting then that in Mitzrayim, the Torah clearly goes out of its way to say all the Nisim that Hashem did, and Rambam is emphatic that he was Mashiach. It's not about that.
He's saying that he doesn't have to do that.
Right.
What Rambam is trying to do is saying that there are those that have come along and will come along and say, if you see my guy's miracles, now you know he can do all sorts of things. He can walk on water. He can do many impressive things. So isn't that a proof that you should accept him as the Messiah? To look at all these impressive things that he can do. So the Rambam is saying that don't think that that is a necessary qualification of Mashiach. And we're going to see a proof of that is that once we get to Bar Kokhba, and this is going to be a big topic for today and tomorrow, is that his proof is from Bar Kokhba. Is that Rabbi Akiva, who said that Bar Kokhba is Mashiach, he said this is Mashiach, by the way. He proclaimed him Mashiach. That's right. I want to go through the history of Bar Kokhba, is that he didn't perform any miracles. He was a king, he was a soldier, he was fighting the rebellion against the Roman legions after the fall of the Beis HaMikdash, where there were still many, many Yidden living here in Eretz Yisrael, and there was a lot of tension, and there were new gezeras that were placed on Klal Yisrael after the Beis HaMikdash had fallen. It wasn't like the Beis HaMikdash fell and everyone was just gone. The Yidden were here. Rabbi Akiva is here. Yavne v'chachameh, like Rabbi Yochanan said. Yavne, Rabbi Yochanan Zaka said, save me Yavne v'chachameh. Save me the Davidic line. Save key elements. So we'll go through once we get through into the lineage and what happened. So don't think Mashiach has to do this. It could be he will. U'machadesh devarim ba'olam. And he's going to make new things that never existed in the world. Or he's going to resurrect the dead. It's interesting, these are the Rambam's examples. You might think he's going to come, he can just resurrect people. And we see the Amoraim resurrecting the dead, but that's right. Or anything like this. Or anything of this nature, which people, the Rambam says, that are Tipshin, seem to believe. Ein hadavar kach. This is not the way it goes. Ein hadavar kach. Shahar Rabbi Akiva chacham gadol mechachmei mishnahai. Rabbi Akiva, who was the greatest chacham. Hu hayanoisa kelev shel ben koiziva hamelach. He was carrying the weapons of Bar Kokhba, which is another way of saying that he was completely subjugating himself to Bar Kokhba as the king. V'hu haya'omer alav, and he said about him, shehu melech haMashiach, that he is Mashiach. Bless you. Okay, there's a little bit of background we need to go into to understand Bar Kokhba. V'dimahu, Rabbi Akiva thought, v'kol chachmei doiroi, is the machloikis, was everybody, or even within the door, there were those that were not going with Bar Kokhba. Shehu melech haMashiach, ad shenerag ba'avoinus, until he was killed. Bar Kokhba was killed. Kivin shenerag, and since he was killed, noide lahem she'einu, he can't be melech haMashiach. That's a diuk that people like to make also. Only someone who's killed can't be Mashiach. It says that he's nerag, only if he's killed, he can't be. V'loi shalom imenu chacham v'loi ois v'loi moifes. And the Rambam says, the chacham never asked Bar Kokhba, as they're proclaiming the Mashiach, will you show us a miracle? Make loaves of bread. He was never asked for a miracle. And they were proclaiming the Mashiach. So we see that to be Mashiach doesn't mean you have to do miracles. He had all the other qualifications. Now, I just want to go into the backstory of Bar Kokhba, because I think it's very important just to see the whole storyline of Bar Kokhba. So it really goes like this. So let's just have a little bit of history together. Chaim Ilan Meir, and seeing the history and going into it together, b'siyat d'shmaya. And like I heard from a barrel wine of blessed memory, the one thing we learn from history is we don't learn from history. And therefore, hopefully, we can learn a little bit. So in the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, so the Roman government and the Roman legions were still in power. And they were making tremendous pains on Klal Yisrael, and they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. And after the Churban, they didn't leave and just kind of depart. There was a tremendous awe of their malchus still on the people. And there's a lot of pressure on the people here. And Adrianus Caesar had made additional gezeras on Klal Yisrael that were very, very difficult. Specifically, Jews were not allowed to keep Shabbos, not allowed to do milas, which is being outlawed in certain places in Europe. And this is very difficult to even read, that they said that people had to be with nidos. They had to be boiled, nidos. And the Jews, of course, would be moister their nefesh to keep mitzvahs. They're moister nefesh to keep mitzvahs. Mamish. Of course, in secrecy. So at that time, the malchus was getting very, very intense on Yisrael. And things were getting very heavy on Klal Yisrael. And because of that intensity, as things were really getting bad, one of the things that happened is Adrianus put Avodah Zarah where the Beis HaMikdash was and things like that. So a rebellion began. A Jewish rebellion began, Gevuras Yisrael. And there was a number of Jews who did a large rebellion and milchama, a war against the ancient Romans. It was a rebellion that officially started, even though this is after the destruction, right after the second Beis HaMikdash.
Late 60s, early 70s. That's when the Jewish war is important.
That's right.
The
Minyona.
We were writing the Mishnah also?
The Mishnah was being written a little bit after that. This is the times of Rabbi Akiva. So this is the Mishnaic time period, and Yavne, everyone's learning, and all the yeshivas are still going, but we're sort of like in secrecy at this time, living in Eretz Yisrael, but under the Roman oppression. And now an official rebellion began. Now, this was a vast estate, so you had to be careful. There was the soldiers. This is not, you don't just make a rebellion, because that's a rebellion against Rome Mamish. But there were Yidden who made an official rebellion, and it says they dug tunnels, and they were fighting a real warfare against, now this is a spiritual war, because their problem was a religious problem. Their problem was, you're telling us not to keep Shabbos or Mila and making Averos. This is not that we're just under your government. This was a religious problem. Now it's interesting that, the two rabbinic holidays that we have are Purim and Chanukah. So what are the two devices, meditative devices that we use? One on Purim, one on Chanukah. On Chanukah we have a dreidel. That's the meditative device. There's big secrets of the dreidel. And on Purim, what do we have? The Grager. I used to also call it a Gregor growing up. A Grager.
What is it?
So I also in Toronto called it a Gregor.
Yeah.
I know.
What is it really? A Gragger?
Roger.
Wow.
I've heard two Girsois. My wife never heard of Gregor. She's like, Gregor? It's a Gregor. It's a Gregor.
Connor, man.
What is a Grogu?
It's the
You
sound.
say Haman,
Say Haman, right?
It's one of the
So what's interesting about the difference between a dreidel and a Gregor? Gregor. What's the difference? Is that a dreidel is little on the top, big on the bottom, and the Gregor is little on the bottom, big on the top. So when it came to the Hanukkah story, what was the threat? Was it a physical threat or a spiritual threat? What were being threatened?
Colonization, physical.
The spiritual.
What?
Was a spiritual threat?
Purim was actually the temple was being
No.
destroyed.
No. As long as you were a good Greek, as long as you were a good Hellenist, you went to the theater,
You went to the gymnasium.
that the gymnasium, you don't ask any questions, they were not going to hurt us. Just that Shabbos thing. Yeah.
Colonization.
Just make sure that you read our newspapers and make sure that you, hang out with our girls, and then it'll all be okay. What was it and therefore, what was the threat? It was a spiritual threat, but nothing physical. So the dreidel represents the bottom, which is the physical world, is big, is intact. The top part is tiny. They were trying to attack spiritual. In Purim, it's the exact opposite. Haman wasn't waging a spiritual battle. You're religious, you're not religious, Hitler, Yamach Shemo, you have a second grandfather, mother on your fourth brother, sister's side. Doesn't make a difference. If you're a Jew, you're dead. And therefore the Grager threat was a physical threat, so it's on the bottom. So the Beis HaLevi says something amazing. He says, whenever you have a physical threat to the Jewish nation, what really is the answer? By Purim? Pray, tshuva. That's really the answer. When there's a spiritual threat,
Then you fight.
Fascinating Beis HaLevi. Spiritual battle.
They killed Haman, physically.
Afterwards, fine, but the whole war only began after the fast of Esther, prayer, tearing open the heavens.
So both.
Only afterwards. Only after because we changed the decree. We had to change the decree. That was the whole thing, was through prayer. You got to daven. It's prayer. It's all prayer. So here, what do we see? We saw a spiritual threat. A spiritual threat that the ancient Romans were putting more pressure on the Jews. And they were saying no Shabbos, no Mila. Sounds like also the Greek period, repeating itself. And then what happened? So then the Milchama began. So now...
Sorry, just for historical clarification. the Purim story took place under Xerxes. Xerxes was king of the Persian Empire at the time. Ahasuerus, and which is English name for,
No, no.
I think it's Xerxes.
He's Cyrus's grandfather.
Yeah.
Most people say that.
Cyrus's grandfather.
And then the Hanukkah takes place under the Greeks, and then something like like 500 years later, it's
A couple years after Alexander.
This is only about 300 years afterwards, less,
300 years.
250.
Okay.
250 years. Now we're at a time that the Beis HaMikdash is destroyed. Jews are living still in the land, some fleeing,
Yeah.
many in the land, and then a threat spiritually to us in the land. And then a rebellion begins.
Got it.
Once the kind of intensity was getting too strong, the rebellion begins. Too much, the rebellion begins. So what happened? This rebellion started taking out the Romans. And over, Romans were falling, but they couldn't fight back. They stood up a king at that time, a Jewish king,
3 plus. Wasn't it?
Bar Kokhba. Bar Kokhba. They make Bar Kokhba in a time of scattered rebellion against really a spiritual threat. They stand up a king, a Bar Kokhba. So Ben Kokhba started amassing warriors around him. He starts amassing lots of warriors, Giborim Mikol Haaretz, and all of them are coming, gathering with him in big chaburas in order to fight the Romans. And they say that his warriors were such powerful warriors, Giborim, Berucham, Ba'oimetz Libam, like very powerful human beings. It's interesting, Yerushalmi speaks out something very, almost scary and like eerie. They said that Bar Kokhba was able to gather together 200,000 soldiers, amitzi, like powerful people, but were ketue etzba, missing finger people. What is that missing finger? That in order to join,
It means you're experienced in war if you're missing
people
fingers.
had to bite off part of their finger to show, which already is not sounding very Jewish.
Sounds good.
This is not okay. To show ani gever,
Probably Oscar.
for sure. Chabola, shalom l'tzorach mitzvah, ushmartem al nafsheseichem. And the Chacham went to Bar Kokhba and they said, Ad Mosai ata oises Yisrael balim mumin. Look at that line. Bar Kokhba, you're this new king and you're getting all these warriors together, and everyone's like biting off parts of their finger, so the Chachamim they were nervous about Bar Kokhba. You see that from Yerushalmi in Tainus. You're making Klal Yisrael into balim mumin. And they say only people can on their horses pull out cedar trees, like big people. He was gathering all these fighting men, and very powerful fighting men. And this is now the setting of the rebellion that's happening against Rome. Now remember, this is after Rome had already destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and that we're here in the land, and things are not pashut, but the war is going on, and they were fighting. And they would be here, they would catch the Romans by surprise. It was very, very mamish. And they say that Bar Kokhba was a very mighty, we could pick up giant rocks and throw them and he was a king. They had appointed him a king. They even called him the king of Beitar.
There's no reason to think that he came from off and stuff like that.
That I don't know.
You know so little about it, like a basic thing, of course.
It would be hard to say that he didn't because that's one of the qualifications.
I'm saying, but we can find no mention of ever said anything that he wasn't.
He probably knew that.
The same thing about the Bab Rebbe. There's no reason to think they just
Everyone nowadays.
He actually is related.
The way that the
Related to
genealogy works, we
Baal
all descend from David Melech.
Say it again?
our population is so small and so
They
interconnected.
say eventually
We all
all
descend-
families are
At this point, we all descend.
It's interesting, there's no mention, we never say anything.
Nothing yet. We see that Rabbi Akiva was adamant.
Right.
This is who Melech Mashiach. So we haven't even seen him proclaiming. This is just the background.
Right.
So all of a sudden, in comes Rabbi Akiva. V'zois Rabbi Akiva Amar Zehu HaMelech HaMoshiach. That's in Medrash. Those words from Rabbi Akiva. Medrash Echa. Zehu Melech. This is Melech HaMashiach. This is it. And then as the things were going on, Bar Kokhba was conquering different areas. And he conquered hundreds of cities. Hundreds. He was making very, very big moves. We're going to see that something happened where Bar Kokhba was going to get clipped from the story. And there were people that were warning Rabbi Akiva this whole time that something is not going on that's good. We're going to have to get back to the Bar Kokhba story. But one of the things that we're seeing here from the Rambam is we're starting to get identifying features of Mashiach. And then one of the key identifying features of Mashiach is that he does not have to perform miracles. He could, but it's not a prerequisite. Because the whole storyline of Bar Kokhba is that you see that he had midos, he had the characteristics, he was a leader, he knew Torah, he was a warrior, he was fighting Hashem's wars, he's saying people are messing with Klal Yisrael, so he was fighting that, Milchamas Hashem. He was unifying people, he was being Mekabeitz Yisrael, he was rallying people around him. So we saw that there was things were coalescing and galvanizing around him as a messianic person.
Was there any base of English moves and activity being made?
To rebuild already the third one, I'm not sure.
That's the main focus of.
That is for sure, that has to be.
Right.
We spoke about it may not have to be until after he comes. And there's a big discussion, does it have to be before or after he comes? It could be that, and also the Nidchei Yisrael. The Nidchei Yisrael, there's a big discussion. The Nidchei Yisrael is really only going to be after Beis HaMikdash. Which is so amazing because, like, you hope at least after the Beis HaMikdash. Before, like, everything's happening. I'm only coming, I've got a good job here, I got a good thing, I got 3 Teslas in that, give me a Beis HaMikdash, then I'll head back to Gullus. It's nice, man, it's nice, I'm saying, like, it might just take a base, the Lefido Shita is going to take a Beis HaMikdash until all the kibbutz of the Gullus come back. Okay, Rabbi says, so we're in this sugya, so I just want us to know where we are and where we're going. Where we are is we're seeing in this 3rd chapter, we're starting to get identity features of Mashiach, of knowing who Mashiach is and who he's not. And the Rambam's going to start really getting involved in like details about this. The main focus that we're going on now is that there's no need for Mashiach to perform miracles, which was really a banner that many around the world took on. It's like, this will be the sign. And specifically, the Rambam is going to say that this is all kishuf. If you see other people doing miracles, for sure in the Shittas of Rambam, it's going to be smoke and mirrors, kishuf, making the Eiffel Tower and the Statue of Liberty disappear. It's push, it's smoke and mirrors. According to Ramban, it's going to be mamish black magic, for real, and shameless and things like that. But in the Rambam, it's just smoke and mirrors, a charlatan. And therefore, don't think, because it's easy to do miracles if you go with this approach of smoke and mirrors. You just got to learn the tricks and then you do it. To be a mamish tzaddik, that takes, you can't do that overnight. You can't just go to David Blaine's School of Magic and then learn a few tricks. You got to, to be a tzaddik, that really is day in and day out. Like Rabbi Yossel's minion, day in and day out, mamish, nates, learning, davening, caring about people. And b'siyata d'shma, we should be zocheh that this will be it. B'siyata d'shma, this will be the month, Cheshvan, that we'll start to hear the rechisha, the footsteps of Mashiach, and b'siyata d'shma, b'mher v'yemen, amen v'amen. A wonderful day called Rabbi Sign.